have a special guest here at the factory today, Mr. Brad Paisley. I'm such a big fan of, and great guitar player, great person.
Likewise.
And, you know, it's just a camaraderie, I think, between guitar players. And I've known one of his tech and guitar builders, Bill Crook, for a long time. And we met at a Brian Gallup guitar seminar back in, somewhere in Michigan, St. Joseph,
What
Michigan.
year was that?
99 or something, 2000, not a long time
So I was just getting started.
Yeah. And then I think it was Al Greenwood from Vintage Guitar Magazine gave me your phone number, and I called you. I talked to your dad, I think, for a bit, and I talked to you.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago, too.
Right,
you
exactly.
know. And then you were still up in, what, Montana area? Or
West Virginia.
West Virginia,
Yeah, maybe.
And then Guitar Magazine was in Bismarck, North Dakota. So Alan gave me your number or something. I don't know how it was, but I called you. And then we just started talking about tellies and stuff. And you know, for me growing up, I used to watch the Ozzie and Harriet show with James Burton and everything, you know, and that's where we met physically, you know, at the James Burton Festival.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out what year that was. I mean, I was like, oh my God, that was 15 years ago.
Who knows? It doesn't feel like that long.
No, it doesn't. No,
it couldn't have been that. And maybe 10.
And maybe 10. Yeah, it could be. You know,
feels like 3.
I know.
Time goes fast.
It's incredible, you know. But like growing up, now, who was your influence that got you playing guitar and telly?
I was lucky that my grandpa was the main sort of driver towards music for me.
Yeah.
Because he had good taste. Yeah. You know, I didn't have the rest of my family wasn't that interested in music in any way. They enjoyed it the way anybody would. But my grandpa was really sort of meticulous about his sort of choices. And he loved the guitar. He loved guitar music. He loved instrumental music. So he got me started listening to what he loved, which was Buck Owens. And I think the first record I remember is Tiger by the Tail on a turntable. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the first one. Because then they said I used to do circles. I used to like run around in circles when they would play that record as a child, you know, as a toddler.
That's great, yeah.
And but he loved country music, especially with the instrumental bent, such as Buck, Roy Clark.
Yeah, Roy Clark.
He loved Floyd Kramer. He had those records, the piano. He loved guys like Chet Atkins. To him was the just cat's meow. Hey, I mean that. So I got influenced by stuff that most kids my age were completely unaware of. They didn't know, you know, in the 80s, they weren't listening. People weren't, you know, children weren't listening to Freight Train and Under the Double Eagle and all of that. And so I was growing up with that kind of education, and I had local guitar heroes. A guy named Hank Goddard, who was very much a thumb style, jazzy, sort of Chet meets Les Paul meets Hank Garland, actually.
Wow,
a lot
Hank
of that
Garland, that's cool.
in his playing. So that was I was really blessed to have been introduced to things that I think you wouldn't have found otherwise. And then I also had another guitar player in my local hometown named Roger Horde, who was Roger was like, Roger could have been the most in-demand session player in Nashville if he'd ever moved there.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, could read music, could play everything from Lenny Breau to any rock lick you wanted to learn, he knew it. But he was way into jazz, way into stuff like, Pat Metheny, he could do that. He could do that. I mean, Roger's one of those guys, he's a chameleon.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Great telly player too, great Strat player, great, you know, could do all of that Brent Mason stuff at the time when that was starting to become very prevalent. And I learned from those guys. So I was lucky that I was introduced to sort of country guitar playing, and also introduced to the fact that, I mean, country music, people may not realize, we've had an incredible adult portion of great players.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
You know, we're way past our due in terms of the lion's share of these guys, because guys like Hank Garland and Brent Mason and you know, these are players that will win in a duel against anyone.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Bryant too. You know,
Same thing.
I think about Jimmy, man. And they were the first records I had too. My uncle gave me. It was Chet Atkins EP and you know, Jimmy Bryant, Speedy West. You know.
Oh man, I mean that stuff. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and then watching TV, that's where I got into the Telecaster, watching James Burton and
I
stuff,
know.
and
Well, that's the only reason I can play a Paisley Telly is because the reason that's cool is because of James.
James, that's right.
Everybody
Yeah.
else took those and tore them into pieces. I mean,
Yeah,
they didn't want to keep their, and it was, if you look back, it's an idea that shouldn't have worked at all.
Right, yeah.
Fender basically went into some old lady's bathroom and took the wallpaper off the wall and put them on those.
And then they had a lot of, because the finish they would put on would peel off. You know? I mean, it was like apple candy or candy apple,
And that's where Bill Crook has gotten so great at being sort of truly, I think, the leading expert on what to do with those guitars. I mean, he's gotten so good at applying sort of a new version of that to a body, as well as he has fixed my old first Paisley Telly, and then there's a great story which we need to get into in a minute about one that's the craziest bit of karma.
Really, that's cool. Yeah.
And also just serendipity that I've ever heard as far as a guitar story goes. And but Bill is, Bill loves that thing, that Paisley finish, and he does a good job, I think, of a really good new version of that.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So it's good, knowing him and for all these years too, and and I was so glad to be able to send you some, just mock-up prototype pickups for some of your, just to put in, just so you could test a guitar or just have something,
And we did a really neat thing recently at my home studio, and we have a little in the basement of the old house. Me and my guitar tech Dave Rose. It's Dave. Dave's been around a long time. He used to tech for the Stones and a lot of people. He teched for Larry Carlton for a while.
Yeah.
Dave's a great guy, and he's a night owl like me, and so on any given night you can find us sort of in the basement,
really, that's
working
cool,
on the minutia of a Blackguard Telly, or going into trying to I'll have one of my old Blackguards and be trying to replace some of the saddles with looking for the right original brass, or just the minutia that I think adds up to great tone. But we took a Telly and we did something really cool where we took, the cavity that the pickup goes in a Telly, and so we had all of these laid out, and I'm like, I don't even know how some of these sound. So we took a body that somebody had given me, and we routed the hole for the pickup all the way through to the back, because it was it's just a brand new body. It was kind of it wasn't old or anything, and so all you got to do is you take the 3 screws, and we sent the wires through with connectors.
Oh, good.
And so all you do is unscrew that and then grab the pickup, put the other pickup in, do high-speed drill, and the next thing you know, you in about 45 seconds, you have a new, and you attach the clips to it. You have a new pickup in.
Yeah.
So you can play one, listen to it, and then 45 seconds later play another. And we've been able to categorize a lot of my guitar pickups and figure out sonic characteristics. And it's really an amazing thing to hear. And you obviously are great at this, to hear how different 2 of the same pickup may be. You know what I'm saying? There's so many things that go into these things that we can't explain, but being able to say, this one's dark for whatever reason, this one's kind of bright, and then you have a guitar that somehow, once you put it together, feels bright or feels dark, you can offset that. And that's a really fun thing we've been able to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of little tricks you can do with capacitors and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
In series and parallel and all that, if it's too bright, capacitor to ground, from the lead wire, and it'll knock something off if you need it. Darker, easily. So, but when you start touring, how many guitars did you take with you when you were on the road?
Well, I probably take 20, out there. I probably have 20 in a case.
That's good. Boy.
I might play 10 different electric guitars in the course of a show. I think we typically do 20 to 25 songs.
Really? Yeah.
At least parts of them. And so you only get through a song or two live without needing to switch.
Yeah, exactly. I want to hear the story about the other Paisley.
You're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
So this is pretty crazy. So, drink a coffee before I tell this. So you're familiar with Chicago Music Exchange?
Yeah.
Great store. One of my favorite stores in the world. I think the experience of that, I love the way, everything about this store. They're the nicest guys.
Yeah.
They're in a great location in Chicago. They got it's just so comfortable. They got couches, and
Yeah.
they don't care if you play loud, and
Yeah,
they got rooms
that's
for
cool.
that. And so I go in there, and I've bought many things over the years there. We were there last September, and I only own a lot of people think I must have a couple of Paisley Tellies, right? Like several of those that I collect or something. But I only
Yeah.
have one.
Really?
Especially at that time, I had one, and it's that old '68 that I play.
Wow. Yeah.
And I don't always take it on the road anymore. I'm kind of careful with it. I record with it a lot. It's kind of my most prized old guitar to some degree. That has a Duncan in the neck pickup. It's a great sounding neck pickup that like early on when I got that guitar, the neck pickup didn't work very well because those late '60s pickups weren't very good.
Yeah.
So I threw in a Duncan, and that's been in there since 1995, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Geez, that's cool.
It's probably hot neck or something.
Yeah.
So I go into Chicago Music Exchange. I'm trying some old guitars, and I said, "Hey, you know what would be really neat?" I said, "Do you have like an old late '60, like '68 refin or anything like that? That I've always wanted to get Bill Crook, now that he's making this paper so great,
Yeah.
to take a '68 that was already refinned and turn it into a Paisley Telly.
Wow. That's
Like get an old body."
Yeah, that's cool.
So they said, "Yeah, we got one just recently." So they bring in this '68 Telly to me, just black, terrible black finish. Somebody took a spray can at some point, decided to make this a black guitar. So black guitar, maple neck, '68. I said, "This is great, I'll buy it." So I bought it for whatever those go for. Not a lot of money because of that, and because it was bad shape. So I sent it to Bill. I said, "Hey, it's a great neck, it's a great body, it's not heavy, it's really cool. Do you want to make this a Paisley?" And he went, "That's great. What a great idea. Let's do that." Because everybody didn't reverse back then. They tore the paper off
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
refinned
Yeah.
them. So I sent it to Bill, or actually didn't. It was September. I forgot. I left it in the case in the back of my bus in the storage closet
Ooh.
for the next, I don't know, a couple months. And in December, Bill writes me at Christmas and says, "Hey, where's that guitar? I got time to do it right now." So I send it to him. I said to Bill, literally, as I sent it, I said, "Hey, when you take the finish off, make sure you look for signs that maybe that was a Paisley at one time, because that would make a
right.
lot of sense, right? Because
Yeah.
people refin those for the most part." So here.
Yeah.
So I go through, and I'm looking, and Bill sets up his workbench, puts the thing up on the wall, and says, "All right, so let's take a good look at this thing." And as it's hanging on the wall, he looks at the way the paper's kind of, I say paper, but he looks at the way the finish is kind of cracking, and it's not cracking like a finish cracks. It's cracking like wallpaper cracks.
Ooh. Really?
And then he takes some acetone to the back, takes the neck off, sees what's underneath, and sends me a picture.
You're kidding. Holy crap, man.
And so he starts to remove it. He sends me this picture first, which is, he says, "Look what's underneath the finish." And then here's the top.
Oh my God, man, you're kidding.
That was 100% underneath that finish, perfectly preserved. He said, I mean, if you can look at it, it's as nice a shape as you've ever seen paper, because he said somebody probably around 1970, when you probably couldn't sell it. The store was like, "No one wants this." And somebody was like, "Oh, I guess I'll buy it." Bought it for pennies on the dollar, and then took a spray can of acrylic black paint and just covered it. And that basically preserved that paper for however long.
Well, and the finish too was like almost a plastic finish on the guitar.
Right, yeah.
So
didn't hurt it at all.
The paint wouldn't hurt it. It's like some kind of polyurethane or something. Yeah, plastic finish. So and Bill got it off. That's great.
He got it off completely intact, and then he rebursted the sides.
Yeah.
So that it, because the only thing that did come off was, how they sort of bursted a sort of reddish paint on the sides.
Oh.
So that came off with it. So he redid the paint, put the neck back on, and it's incredible. It looks like an actual, like it never was refinished.
See, that's
he did great.
See, I love that.
So what are the chances that I walk into a store looking to do that and grab that guitar?
And it's already there.
And it's already under it. And also that I know the right guy to get that right, because very few people would have known what to do with that.
Yeah.
Besides Bill.
What happens here too, we get a lot of pickups in for rewinding, And there's a 50% chance the pickup can be repaired or it can't be repaired, Either the beginning wire or it's broken inside. I call it ICPC, which is intercoil pole corrosion, where the magnets can rust.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like on the 68 tellies and stuff. We get a lot of them that come in that they're all rusted inside. And it breaks down the magnet wire, so it shorts it out. And then sometimes people are messing with it, taking it in and out of the guitar, and they'll break the finish wire. And usually I can take a couple turns off and reattach the finish wire. So that helps it a lot, So a lot of pickups don't need to be rewound, People, I try to tell them that, So,
that would make a lot of sense unless they break in the middle or something.
Exactly, and that,
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that.
But a lot of the humbuckers back in the 70s and 80s, they would pry the cover, break the solder joints, and pull it up, and then the solder, pretty sharp, would cut into the outer part of the coils on the outside of the humbucker.
Yeah.
And that's why you would have to maybe, unless you can take enough turns off to repair it and everything.
Well, your Antiquity PAFs are the most incredible.
I think they're good.
PAFs. So what I did a trick on a Les Paul that my monitor guy's been refinning guitars for fun. And I had a reissue Les Paul that I gave him to refin because it's sort of the finish was, I think it was poly, so he got all that off and did the right thing, did a nitro thing. And so he refinned this thing, and he said, "What pickups do you want?" I said, "Well, I want the Seymour Antiquities," but I said, "But that bridge pickup's too hot," so I went and bought 2 necks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is a good trick.
Yeah.
And then just flip the,
Yeah.
Because that's, to me, the perfect thing. So there's your trick, kids. 2 neck pickups from Antiquity.
Yeah, that's a Brad info.
For the PAFs, yeah.
Yeah, boy. So when you travel, do you take time out to do a lot of rehearsing, or can you practice a lot when you're on the road or when you're on the bus and everything, or do you listen to a lot of music while you're out there?
I think I use sound check as practice as much as anything.
Yeah. That's good.
I find that, especially now, my idea of practicing is either writing songs and then coming up with the guitar part for it,
good. Yeah,
creating, or just improvisation over the songs that we already do. And then, as far as practice goes, it's more studio stuff. That's when I really learn new things. And it's been an interesting thing to go into, you go into the studio and you try to think, okay, what haven't I done? And you try to go there.
Yeah, that's cool.
As far as whether that's scales or notes or anything like that. And every now and then I get a gig with somebody that takes me to school. Like Robin Ford and I recently just did a bar night together in Nashville. We did
cool.
Like last year we took over one of the clubs, and his band and my band set up together, and he'd do a song, I'd do a song, and we just kept jamming on each other's stuff, which is, as you can imagine, that's challenging because he has a feel that is one of a kind, as you know.
It really does,
And then the same thing with Red Volkart. Red always takes me to school. Like when I go play with Red, I end up learning things, that I didn't know were possible. He's something.
Yeah, well, I was. Do you remember Clint Strong?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Clint. Yeah.
All that jazz stuff with Merle.
Yeah, and he actually got me up to do a session with Merle, and we did a song called "Winds of Change," and John Anderson was on it with us and everything.
Yeah.
And I just did some telly bends and stuff on it and everything. So I mean, I was very honored to do that. But working with Clint, we were talking about Red and everything. And there's so many great players out there that don't get the recognition sometimes,
Oh, yeah. And one of my good friends, you may know him, Zach Childs, who does a lot of writing for Vintage Guitar. He used to be my tech, and we went to college together. Zach he's a wealth of knowledge, and he went with me to that James Burton thing when you played, and both of us said the same thing, which was, that was an amazing night. I mean, Eric Johnson and you name it. I mean, we had all the Alabama guys, we had James, and James is still one of those guys that he still plays circles around all of us. I mean, he started the whole thing.
Well, he started the whole thing.
And he still beats all of us. I don't know how he's still this creative, but when you got up, there was something about you. You blew us away at that event. Yeah, his tone, I say his, he, as a player, you've become so successful as a pickup maker. I think there's a lot of guys buy your pickups may not realize what a player
Yeah,
you are.
yeah, I've done
You're amazing.
a lot. So I appreciate that, definitely. How much do you travel a year? You're on the road and everything.
I think we do about 65 tour dates a year, and not including other stuff like the Opry in Nashville. And
Yeah, right.
we got a summer tour that'll start in end of June, I think.
Oh, good. That's great. Yeah, we leave next week for Dallas doing the vintage guitar show down there.
That's great.
So if there's anything you were looking for, let me know.
I will let you know. That's
see if I can find
that's the best one, isn't it?
That's one of them. Yeah, here's one in October too.
Arlington. See,
Arlington.
I actually bought my first Paisley Telly, the main
kidding.
guitar at Arlington Guitar Show in 1995.
God, I must have been there.
You might have been.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have known who I was yet.
No, but it's you meet a lot of people. But yeah, it'd be neat if you could go back and look at some old photos.
It would be neat if you could go back and buy a few of those things now, because I think I paid $3,000 for that.
Wow.
For that Paisley Telly then.
Really? Back then?
Back then. They weren't up to $20,000 yet.
Are they 20? Are they 20 now?
Some are.
Are they? Jeez,
it just depends, yeah. Some are 15.
Ooh,
when you give anything, all of us would give anything for a time machine.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, would you fix what happened? What's happened in history? I don't know, but I know what I would do with it. I'd go back and buy, Blackguards.
That's it.
or
I
whatever.
know. But nowadays,
Bursts.
You can't buy the same paints or anything because all the rules have changed. You can't get nitrocellulose, or you can't spray it in California, basically.
Really?
And
you're not allowed to spray nitro in California?
No, we can't really use it.
What do you do if you build guitars out here?
You build a factory in Mexico, like Fender did, or you build a factory in Arizona. Gibson's still okay, or I don't know how they're doing, but
yeah, they're not doing well right now.
Yeah, they could spray lacquers back there and everything.
Well, yeah, they're in the store in Nashville. Yeah, they're all right. They do it there, but
now, how do you like living in the Montecito area here in Santa Barbara?
We're only out here a little bit. We mostly are in Nashville, but I love it. I love this area and this culture is it's such a great sort of yin and yang to the Nashville experience. It's so laid back here.
Wow.
I see why you chose.
I've been out here.
What you do here.
When I came over from England.
Basically
moved up here in '78. So I've been here a long time. But I'm so glad too that you came by the factory and had a chance.
Such a great place.
And we're gonna give you a tour out there and everything.
I got to see this. I hear I get to wine something.
Thank you guys. See you soon out there.